The following program is internationally renowned ghost hunter Richard Crowe's final television appearance, recorded on May 17, 2012. He passed away on June 6, 2012. Since 1973, Mr. Crowe took people on fascinating tours of the Chicagoland area's most haunted sites. Mr. Crowe was also a dear friend of RBTV, having appeared on several programs throughout the years. Rest in peace, dear friend. See you on the other side.
Hello and welcome to the A-List. I'm Alex Voorhees. My guest for today's episode is the man behind the Chicago Supernatural Ghost Tours and an internationally renowned ghost hunter, Mr. Richard Crowe. Welcome to the show, Mr. Crowe.
Thank you, Alex.
For those who don't know, could you please describe a little about how a ghost hunter does his job, like what goes into setting up a ghost hunt?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, it's not the way a lot of people think, I suppose, but most of my work is done prior to even going out the door. Telephone calls, internet, doing book research, getting the history, and then that's when you go out once you're totally equipped with as much knowledge as possible about a specific location. Then you go out there and take a look at it close up, hands-on.
Mm-hmm. Like when you talk about research, what kind of things do you research when you're looking into a location to do a hunt for?
Well, because Chicago is such a unique situation, such a unique area, we've got tragedy, we've got gangsters, we've got all kinds of aspects of foul play and murder and mayhem that you just learn about the history of the area, and from there start asking around, or usually the stories come to me even without even asking, from people who have experiences and they want to tell me about things that they think are of supernatural origin that happen to them in a certain spot.
So what kind of equipment do you use once you've done enough research? What piece of equipment do you use to find these ghosts or supernatural activity?
I'm not really huge onto equipment. EMF detectors, doing the voice recordings and so forth. That does not really get me going. I want good eyewitness firsthand accounts. I want personal observation. Studying that, collating that, and ABCD, having all these different people basically give me little bits of the jigsaw puzzle, putting it together. That's how I conduct my ghost research.
So I'm sure you've been on many ghost hunts throughout years. What are some of your most memorable experiences or locations that you've scouted out?
Sometimes it's right in the neighborhood. Sometimes it's just something in the area that's not always thought of as being very haunted. Very interesting case in 2007. I was doing a tour in Chinatown for some retired postal employees. And we're walking about, and I had told these people previously that there's one ghost that's been reported for years. She appears to be an 80-year-old Chinese lady, about 5 foot tall, silver hair, cut in a bob, big smile on her face, and wears a burgundy jacket and hood. And she had been showing up on my tours, talking to the straggler in the group, and they'll ask me later, what happened to that Chinese lady that we had in our tour? I'm going, no, we don't have one. Oh, but she was right here with me all during the tour. You didn't see her? No. What happened? She disappeared. Now, I thought maybe it was just somebody who was lonely. Sometimes you get older people that are lonely, like to talk and chat. But then in 2007, that's when I was bringing these folks around, and we were leaving a store on Wentworth Avenue. Now, a few feet away from the door is a big green mailbox. And as I'm walking out the door, somebody just grabs my sleeve, tugs at it, and points. And there she was, right there at the mailbox.
Wow.
5 foot tall, silver hair, cut in a bob, big smile on her face, looked to be about 80 years of age. The only thing is she was not wearing that burgundy jacket and hood. So, okay, what to make of that? It was an April day, and it was warm. But she had the burgundy jacket and hood. She was hugging it to her chest, but it was too warm to put that jacket and hood on that day.
Wow, that's...
So I'm like dancing around trying to look her in the eye. She kept diverting her gaze. And then, after we were doing this little dance for a minute or so, distracted by somebody, and she was gone.
Oh, that's... I can't...
That group will never forget that particular tour. Yeah.
I can't even imagine something like that, like the feelings. I guess that's something you have to experience firsthand.
No, but think about this too. It was in broad daylight. So many people have this preconceived notion that ghosts can only be observed after dark. And you have to have darkness, you have to have sundown before anything like that can happen. That's not the case.
Yeah, so I can see how many of these TV programs and stuff have put that thought in people's mind, but with a story like that, I can definitely believe that ghosts can come about at any time of the day.
Absolutely.
So
another thing too, besides the fact that that was a visual, that was an apparition, but most ghostly encounters are not even visual. They're through the other senses. And perhaps the one aspect of the paranormal that's happened to me more than any other, in fact, I'm pretty sure of it, is the psychic scent, where you smell something and there's no explanation for it in this world. And a very interesting example, I've always been fascinated by a man named Herman Schunemann, who was called the Christmas tree ship captain. And in the early 1900s, he'd bring down Christmas trees every year to Chicago to sell at the dock at the Clark Street Bridge, and he'd bring these trees down from the North Woods. But then, in 1912, and this is going to be the 200th anniversary this November, in 1912, his ship gets caught in a storm. Here he is, fighting his way down along the coast, along the Wisconsin shore, and he's got 15,000 Christmas trees tied to the mast, tied to the deck, and people are observing him as he's heading south. They see him in peril, and nothing could be done to save him because he was out on the lake, and water was too rough to get out there. The ship was seen sinking lower and lower as ice would form on the ship and the cargo, and then he entered a fog bank, was never seen again. Well, so they don't have the body. They never found the bodies of the captain of the crew. But his wife, Barbara Schunemann, outlived him for two decades. And when she died, she was buried at Acacia Cemetery on Irving Park Road in Chicago. So on the tombstone, it says Schunemann, Captain Herman, and his date of his death, and Barbara, the date of her death. In the center, a little tiny Christmas tree carved in the red granite. And I thought that was a fascinating story and had no idea it would turn into a ghost story when I went out there. So I go to visit the grave, and all of a sudden, I'm smelling Christmas trees. I'm smelling this very strong pine scent. And there are no trees around to account for that. And that happens a lot on my tours when we go out there and pay our respects to the captain of the Christmas tree ship. So his body was never found, but he's remembered by that very unique monument, and some strange psychic way he still is around with that psychic scent.
So, can you tell us a bit about, for anybody who's ever been interested in going on one of your tours or ever wanted to go ghost hunting, could you tell us a bit about your Chicago Supernatural tours?
Well, I have a series of tours. I have a matinee tour, I've got an evening tour, a Devil in the White City tour, Chinatown tour, and we're coming up to the summer. I've got my Supernatural boat cruise. So there's a great variety. No matter what the time of year, no matter what your preference is, I've got a package that will fit your needs. So ghosttours.com is the website. Take some time, check it out, click on it, all the links, and you'll see the different offerings I have.
Yeah, very cool. What goes into planning a tour like this? I mean, the preparation, the getting guests. Can you explain that a little?
Well, tours sort of fall together on their own. it just, you immerse yourself in the subject matter, and then before you know it, you've got A, B, C, D, linking of different locations. Now, the one thing you have to do on a tour is to, at least my philosophy, is keep people entertained constantly. No dead air. As you know from TV, you don't want dead air. That's the worst possible thing.
Definitely not.
So I base my tours on 4-hour packages. And so 4 hours from the start when I welcome people on board to the time we're bidding everybody farewell at the end of the trip, I pretty much don't shut up, and I'm telling one story after the other. So you got to be able to space them things out so that there's going to be something for everybody. Plus, when you put together a tour, I think it's very important to have variety, because one person might not be into the gangster story. The other person might not be into the tragedy. The other person might not be into, Resurrection Mary, the hitchhiking ghost, whatever. So you give variety, there's always something they're going to take with them that they're going to appreciate. And there's always one story that really strikes home, I feel, and that they're going to talk about for some time.
So, in your many years of doing these tours, what would you say have been some of your favorites or your most memorable tours that you've given?
Well, I've done tours to Salem, Massachusetts. I've done tours to New Orleans, and I've done tours to Gettysburg.
Very history-rich.
Oh, yes. And, Gettysburg, I've always been a Civil War buff. And if any of your audience has been out to Gettysburg, Farnsworth House is a very famous landmark, and it's also a bed and breakfast. And Farnsworth is that building with red brick and all these bullet holes on the outside, because during the Battle of Gettysburg, the upper floor was occupied by Confederates, and they were firing down upon the town. And so you've got the Confederates up there, and the Yankee side was firing back, leaving all these bullet holes. Now, there's a number of ghost stories there about Farnsworth, and one that happened to me personally, so I'll never forget that, is when I was spending the night there, and I was in the second room from the front, from the street. And we were out all day visiting different historic spots and all that, and got back, we're all dead tired. So I go to my room, my friends went to their rooms, and I just plop into the bed, and then I start hearing outside my door, just pacing somebody back and forth, the footsteps outside the door.
Wow.
And I'm going, well, that can't be any of our group because we're all dead tired. Who's out there pacing back and forth? They're going back and forth, back and forth. And then I remembered the story that they told us earlier. This was not Civil War, but post-Civil War, but about 1900, there was a little boy who was struck and injured severely by a horse and wagon right out in front. So when he gets knocked down by the horse and wagon, they bring him into the closest building, and they put him up in the room next to mine. And the doctor is trying to save his life all night long. He's trying to get that little boy to recover, to survive, and it was in vain. He died. And during the time the doctor is in the room with the boy, the distraught father was walking back and forth, just in the hallway there, right next to the room and right next to my room. And I'm going, well, okay, what do you do in this situation? Do you get up and open the door and look out there? Or is it going to be something you don't want to see? Or is it, is that going to be the end? Or do you just lay here in bed and wait to see what would happen next, listen for what would happen next? So I was dead tired. I just figured I'll just lay here and keep listening, and eventually fell asleep. And I asked the next day, all my group, we were the only ones in there, we had the whole building to ourselves. Anybody out walking around the corridor, just outside my door, outside the hallway? Oh, of course not. We were all tired. I'm going, well, then I must have had the ghost walking outside the door.
Wow, that's very...
So, that's not Freddy Krueger. That's not some Hollywood movie. But this is the reality. This is what most ghost stories are, at least in the old days. The movies today really rub me the wrong way sometimes because they too much special effects and all that. But the more subtle ghost movies like The Haunting or The Uninvited with Ray Milland, starring Ray Milland, these were the kinds of approaches to ghost stories, the classic days, that were much more in tune with what you find in the real world.
Yes, I can see how the media has, the movies and everything has distorted, made these fantastical stories out of ghosts with special effects and everything. And I enjoyed the conversation here today, but unfortunately we're out of time. So thanks for joining me on the A-List. I'm Alex Voorhees. Thanks for watching.